Welcome to Secret Story. My husband is a chief engineer in the petroleum industry. For the last 10 years he has been working with a multinational oil company operating offshore production platforms in Tunisia. His job implies traveling to other neighboring countries such as Libya, Algeria and Egypt. One day he came back from work and told me that he had been invited to attend a major conference on risk management in Tripoli, Libya. He would like me to go with him as the conference program included 2 social evenings for participants and their spouses. I welcomed his suggestion but expressed some concern about our 4 kids while being away from home. He reassured me that he would ask his mother to come to our place and look after them during our 10 days absence. I spent the next day preparing for our trip, like packing items we should take and also arranging things for my mother-in-law to see to my 4 children. Our departure to Tripoli was scheduled for Friday morning from Sfax airport at 8 a.m. The flight would take over 2 hours. At Tripoli International Airport we were met by a young Libyan who introduced himself as the person assigned by his company to help us with hotel accommodation and take us around places we wished to visit during our stay in Libya. His name is Hamad, good-looking, athletically built, probably in his early 20s. My husband and I followed our guide, who carefully put our cases in the car boot and drove off to our hotel located on the coast of Tripoli. Hamad took care of filling out the forms when we checked in at the reception and insisted to see our hotel suite, as he had to make sure that all facilities were available. The suite consisted of a spacious bedroom with a king-size bed, a small sitting room, a bathroom, and a small guest room with a sea view. Everything seemed fine. Before he left, Hamad told us that he had instruction from his employer to take us for dinner at a French restaurant in town, that he would therefore be back to pick us up around 8 that evening. To return the compliment, my husband invited him to have dinner with us, which he accepted with great pleasure. Before leaving, Hamad gave us his business card and told us to call if we needed anything. We thanked him for his help and assured him of our appreciation for his warm welcome. To tell you the truth, my husband and I had met challenges in our life for the last 4 years. Had become a rarity, and when it happened it turned out to be a fiasco, particularly on my husband's side. As time went by, my husband's performance got poorer and my drive increased tenfold. The idea of visiting Tripoli at this point in time was to me a puff of oxygen that could extenuate my frustration, and it hopefully would be an opportunity to spice up our love as husband and wife. It might put an end to our isolation. Hamad came on time and the 3 of us headed to the French restaurant in town. It was dinner at candlelight with romantic music in the background. My husband sat next to me and Hamad faced me. Hamad started telling us about his situation in Tripoli. He said that he studied sociology at the Tunis University, and he graduated a year ago. Soon after graduation, he returned to his native country Libya. He didn't have to wait long before he landed a job at the public relation department of an oil company based in Tripoli. The pay was good, but he missed the pleasant lifestyle he used to have in Tunis while being a student. He felt bored as a young single adult in a country which is deeply conservative and intolerant compared to Tunisia. My husband and I sympathized with Hamad and told him that he would be welcome any time to visit us and stay with us. We also assured him that we have 2 sons, the eldest is probably 2 or 3 years younger than him, and 2 daughters, one is most likely the same age as he is. Hamad was delighted to hear that and promised to keep saving up for visits to us in Sfax, Tunisia. We then left the restaurant and Hamad drove us back to our hotel. He also said that he would be taking my husband to the company headquarters at 8 and that he suggested he'd return to the hotel with the idea of taking me visit places of interest in the greater Tripoli area if I wished. Benny and I welcomed the idea. Hamad took leave and we both went into our suite as we both needed some rest and sleep after a busy and eventful day. I couldn't sleep right away. I kept thinking of Hamad and felt somehow that I was getting attracted to him, but I tried hard to dismiss such feelings when I thought he was practically as old as my son daily. I tried hard to ignore these feelings, but they kept invading my heart and fancy even when I was asleep. There was no way I could share these thoughts with my husband. I knew he would be devastated. So, I decided to keep him in the dark and happy in his ignorance. When I woke up in the morning, I found out that my feelings for Hamad intensified and my sensation of guilt at being attracted to him vanished from my mind. It was like being reborn, wiping out all sentiments of faithfulness to my husband of 20 years. And feeling like a 20-year-old housewife, Hamad came to pick up my husband and suggested to return about lunchtime to take me to visit places of interest in and around Tripoli. I welcomed the idea with the consent of my husband that I then started to make myself beautiful. I really wanted to enjoy my stay in Tripoli and maybe I'd have uninhibited fun for a few days as our children were home and we were away from any source of embarrassment. It was about an hour earlier that Hamad came over to pick me up for a tour. I opened the door, not thinking it was him. "Put your clothes back on, you've got company." Little did he know how close to the truth he was that I quickly grabbed my shirt from the back of the chair. Without missing a beat, I smiled and invited Hamad to sit down and relax. "You early, aren't you?" I commented. "I came straight from work, thinking of having an extra hour with you," he said. "Do I look beautiful?" I ventured to ask. "You look amazingly charming," Hamad said. "Do I look like a Libyan?" he asked. I answered promptly, "Not at all. I thought you were French or Italian." To tell you a little about my family background, my grandpa was married to a Swedish lady and therefore my father had mixed blood, Hamad explained. In his turn, my father got married to a lady from the Netherlands and that perhaps explains why I look partly Middle Eastern and partly Caucasian, he added. As I opened a couple of beers for us, Hamad brought me up to date on his job in Tripoli while his family was in Benghazi. "I want to be closer to Tunisia as I often feel nostalgic about my best years there," he explained. "You must be feeling a great deal of stress being away from your former university mates and your soccer team players." I commented, however, it was his reply that started it all. He replied that, with the lack of entertainment he was having here, and that was causing him tremendous stress. I had just taken a gulp of my drink, and the thought of Hamad, coughing and spluttering with mirth. Hamad grabbed a towel and helped me clean up. I quickly recovered my composure and pulled the shirt closed. Hamad's joke set the tone for the rest of the afternoon and evening. I started to tease him mercilessly about missing all the beautiful girls in Tunisia. I of course felt sorry for him and took his side in wishing to return to Tunisia. Hamad, on the other hand, was enjoying my company immensely. He was giving as much as he got from me, and enjoying the attention he was getting from me, who kept the beers flowing that I could see him catching a peek at me every time I leaned over the table. I seemed quite unaware of the effect I was having on him, and that's when Hamad dropped the bombshell. In amongst the ludicrous suggestions. "Mimi, how about having for me for the night?" he jokingly asked. "I promise to take real good care of you. You know, real good care of you." Then I laughed. "Sure, no problem. All you have to do is convince my husband." I laughed back at him. I blushed, went from pink to red, to crimson. I laughed at how embarrassed I felt. "Are you serious?" I asked. "Dead serious, Mrs. B," he confirmed. I quickly exited to get more beers. "Sorry, I didn't mean to offend you." He seemed to apologize. "No problem," I said. I returned, but I hadn't brought any beers. Instead, I was carrying a tray with 2 whiskeys. They looked like doubles. I carefully put the tray down and gave each of us a glass. I raised my glass to us both, took a pull at the neat spirit, and looked him squarely in the eye. That's when I saw the flash of fire in the emerald brown eyes. "Hamad, you don't have to say anything to my husband, we can do what we both like in full discretion," I said. As I put down my glass, turning slowly towards Hamad as I did so. As we are having this tete-a-tete conversation, the telephone rang. I went to answer the call. It was my husband telling me that due to work commitments, he would be staying the night at Briga, a Libyan oil city. I answered that he needn't worry, I'd find a way to keep myself entertained. Hamad heard what I said over the phone and appeared joyful. I picked up my glass and swallowed, stunned. Hamad picked up his glass and drained it in 2 gulps. Followed by a fit of coughing. I picked up the towel, as Hamad had earlier in the day, and helped him to regain his composure, bending over him to slap him on the back and comfort him with my arm around his shoulders. He finally did calm down that I straightened up. I spoke to him as my eyes were looking him straight in the eye, with a smile on my face. Hamad, I know how you are, and I'd like to help. I almost whispered in Hamad's ears. Hamad picked up my glass and drained it. I took his and drained it. At that moment, the folly of my own actions finally hit me. We can do it as we have the afternoon and all night ahead of us, I repeated. I just continued to look deep into his eyes. Okay. You can do it, I said. Hamad breathed an enormous sigh of blessed relief. Are you sure about this? He asked me. We'll have fun. I nodded my agreement that I sat down in my seat at the table. Okay guy, this is the way it is. I'm going to take you inside now. I can do this as a gift for my new Libyan acquaintance, I spoke with a smile on the face. But you must agree right here and now that we must never, ever tell my husband or any of my children what we have done. Agreed? I insisted. No problem with me. You have my word and total commitment for total discretion, he answered. I'm glad you accepted, I said with a smile showing joy and satisfaction. By that time, we both felt hungry. I ordered room service for a wonderful meal at candlelight. Soon after, Hamad looked over at me, showing signs of uncertainty now about doing what we had agreed to do. Do not worry, Hamad. We'll go for it. My husband is hundreds of miles away and we have all the time to enjoy ourselves, I reassured him. That, I stood and led him by the hand into our suite bedroom. Hamad, you don't have to return home this evening. I said. That'll be fine, Mimi, he answered. What had I done? What were we doing? Hamad had just celebrated his 22nd birthday, just the same age as my daughter, Pearls. I wanted to deny it, but I couldn't, at that moment that I wanted it. I didn't say no. But I didn't try and deny my desire. I just asked if he was sure. Yes, he said. It was dark in the hallway, and I felt confident enough to do what I had never dared to do in years. But I soon remembered it was my fertile period. But I soon dismissed the thought. I did, however, think I would warn him. I truly possessed the incrediblet and now Hamad was getting to experience it. We collapsed into the bed together. I pulled the comforter over our bodies. We both fell asleep.